The results ensuing from vibrations formed from the radiations of other terrestrial beings of various types, of those similar to them, as well as of two-brained and one-brained beings, and also the vibrations engendered by their voices, and by many other causative actions. He demonstrated and explained, among other things, also several experiments proving the harmful action on terrestrial contemporary beings of those causes which they themselves, as if intentionally, produce, especially in recent times, in great quantity, namely what they call works of art. Among these latter were pictures, statues, and of course their famous music. From all the experiments demonstrated by this sage, it became clear that the most harmful vibrations, however, for contemporary terrestrial three-brained beings are those formed in them from their what are called medical remedies. I stayed in the underground domain of this truly learned being 4 terrestrial days, after which, with the Dervish Bokharian, I returned again to that Bokharian town from which I had come, and thus ended my first meeting with him. During those 4 days, he further demonstrated and explained to us much more concerning the laws of vibrations, but the most interesting thing for me personally was his last explanation about why and how, in that wild place, remote from any place of the grouping of contemporary terrestrial beings, in this underground domain of his, there came to be gas and electric lighting. During this account of his, while elucidating a certain fact, this highly sympathetic terrestrial three-brained being could not restrain himself, for sincere tears suddenly began to flow, which then so touched me that even now I cannot forget it. Information about certain data elucidated by this account of his can serve for your further existence as good material for corresponding confrontations and for the elucidation of all the results of what are called subjective destiny. That is to say, of those results which in general occur in our great megalocosmos, where a multitude of relatively independent separate individuals arise and exist together. It often happens that while existing together, destiny, for any separate individual in the process of his personal existence, turns out for him personally to be absolutely unjust. But for all the others existing together with him, there are obtained from this, in the objective sense, an abundance of just fruits. And that is why I wish to tell you about this in as much detail as possible, and will even try to repeat this account of his to you as verbatim as possible without changing anything. It was just before our departure from this underground domain, that is, from that place on your planet which, among other things, convinced me that the results of the attainments of the reason of the former three-brained beings, their ancestors, have not even there been entirely lost. Even if the subsequent generations of the beings of this strange planet cease to transmute in themselves the cosmic truths discovered by their ancestors, yet although their already discovered truths have not progressed as is everywhere proper because of the abnormal being existence, they are nevertheless automatically concentrated in that strange underground kingdom of your planet, to await further perfection and elaboration for subsequent three-brained beings. And so, when I inquired about the methods of the gas and electric lighting in this underground kingdom of his, he related to me the following. The causes of the origin of these 2 kinds of lighting are entirely different, and each of these 2 kinds of lighting has its own independent story. Gas lighting existed here from the very beginning, and was arranged here on the initiative of myself and my old friend, the Dervish Karbelai Aziz Nuraran. As for the electric lighting, it came here only quite recently, and the initiator of its origin was also one of my friends who is still young and who came from among the Europeans. I think it will be better if I tell you the story of each kind of lighting separately. I will begin with the gas lighting. At the time when we first moved here, there was not far from here a certain holy place called the Holy Cave, to which various pilgrims and devotees from all over Turkestan used to throng. The popular belief about this holy place was that once there had lived in this cave, as it were, the famous Hiralaz, who later was taken up alive into heaven. It was further said in this popular belief that he was taken alive into heaven so unexpectedly that he even had no time to extinguish the fire which lit his cave. This last belief was supported by the fact that in that cave there was indeed an undying fire. And so, friend of my friend, as neither I nor my friend the Dervish Karbalai Aziz Nuraran could believe in the verity of this popular belief, we therefore decided to probe into the real cause of that peculiar phenomenon. Having at that time sufficient material possibilities, and having at our disposal the conditions necessary for the investigation of this phenomenon, without any hindrance from anyone whatsoever, we began to seek the source of its arising. It turned out that not far from that cave there flowed under the ground a stream which washed a medium composed of minerals, the totality of the action of which on the water resulted in the separation of an inflammable gas, which through chance crevices in the ground found its way into that cave. And the chance inflammation, somehow, of this gas must obviously have been the cause of the display there of that undying fire. When my friend and I had made this cause definitely clear to ourselves, and had at the same time discovered that the said spring was located not far from our cave, we decided to give an artificial outlet to that gas into these caves of ours. And so, from then on, this gas flowed through the pipes of clay we laid here in the main section of our cave, and from there we distributed it by means of bamboos according to our needs. As for the appearance in our caves of electric lighting, the history of its origin is as follows. Soon after we had settled in these caves, there once came to see me, through a very old friend of mine, also a dervish, a still very young European traveler who sought my acquaintance on account of always this same action of the laws of vibration which interested me. We were soon close friends, as he turned out to be firstly very serious in the search for truth, and secondly very kind, and susceptible regarding the weaknesses of all others without exception. He was studying the laws of vibrations in general, but his studies were primarily of those laws of vibration which cause the formation of various diseases in people. During these studies of his, he, among other things, made clear the causes of the arising in people of the disease existing there under the name of cancer, and the possibility of destroying in people this malignant arising. He then constated, and could already actualize in practice, the possibility that by a certain mode of life and a certain preparation, any man can consciously elaborate